It's not exactly a secret that I'm super passionate about weapons in Warframe. I like to test them, to build them, to fashion them, and everything in between. It's simply something that I enjoy doing in the game. So when I heard that the Arcana update is coming with 2 brand new chambers, I was beside myself. But it looks like not everything was so well put together. And today, my friends, we're going to be diving deeper into the Vermisplicer secondary Kitgun. We're going to talk about the weapon build, but also the Kitgun construction. As always, my name is Leyzar, and this is the Vermisplicer secondary. Let us begin by quickly having a look at how the weapon functions without any mods equipped. And for that, just a couple of free shots. The Vermisplicer in its secondary form is a beam gun which channels 5 frontal tentacles, and these tentacles will be wrapping around targets and dealing damage. Now here's a bit of a spoiler alert. Unfortunately, right now these tentacles, this whole mechanic is a bit on the buggy side and doesn't really function all that well. It's definitely not reliable. Or better said, I hope it's not what the developer intended and it's not this bad. But back to the point at hand. The range, critical chance, critical damage, status chance, damage, everything will depend on how you choose to construct your kit guns. Now let me ask you a question. How do you construct your kit guns? Do you look online for a guide, a little bit of LeyzarGamingViews on YouTube? Or do you just go for it and construct a sacrificial kit gun? Because in order to get the most you can out of a kit gun, to build a quote-unquote most powerful Vermisplicer, let's say, you gotta understand how the mechanics function. And you can't understand how the mechanics function unless you play with one, so let's have a talk with Rud Zud. Hi Zud, I would like to build one of the brand new kit guns, please. Which one will it be? The Vermisplicer. I heard it's a fantastic secondary weapon. Who lied? Anyway, what grip would you like on your secondary? Because essentially this is where the quote-unquote choices begin with your kit gun. The chamber will determine the mechanics of the weapon, and the grip will determine if it's a primary, secondary, the damage, the fire rate, and the range in case it's a beam weapon. And when it comes to secondary weapons, you got 4 options. 5. Now, Gibber, Haymaker, Ramble, Ulnaris, and Lovetap. Now, in order for you to actually see the changes, you're gonna have to fully build one. So let's go with a standard loader. What's a standard recipe is basically this: Haymaker wood splat for secondary weapons, and be sure to preview gilded always so you can see the stats. Let's have a look at options for grip. Take a look at what changes. Damage. That's it. That's your big choice, my friends. Damage. Is that it? No, actually, that's not just it. The fire rate should also change, but it doesn't, and the range as well. Now, me and my community tested 3. The Haymaker, which has 12 meters worth of range. The Lovetap, which has 15 meters worth of range. And the last one was the Ulnaris, which also had 15 meters worth of range. So there you go. I don't know about the Ramble and the Gibber though. But the damage, of course, is going to be the max with Haymaker at 90. And the range, 12 meters. I mean, between 12 meters and 15 meters, there's really not that big of a difference. So I recommend going with Haymaker. Now, the loader controls critical chance, critical damage, status chance, magazine capacity, and reload speed. Now, that's a whole lot of things to control. Here's an option to splat. Maybe you don't like splat, you can go with killstream. This is basically preference based between killstream and splat, because the change is a slightly smaller magazine, well, actually a lot smaller magazine, but quicker reload at 1.3. Honestly, between this and this, it doesn't really matter all that much. Go for what you want. And this would be a basic good build to go for essentially most secondary kit guns in Warframe. Why is that? It goes for maximum critical chance, critical damage, and the maximum amount of damage that the weapon can pork out. And keeping in mind that when it comes to secondary weapons in Warframe, you got Prime Pistol Gambit and Prime Target Cracker. A combination like this is a no-brainer, so let's test it in the simulacrum. Mod capacity is 60 out of 60, and if your Vermisplicer comes with only 30 out of 30, and by all means it should, go into actions, plug in that Auto King Catalyst, double that mod capacity. From my humble point of view, it's not really worth building at the current time, but you do have that option. As always, the choice is yours. You can pay 20 plat to have one installed, you can grind one from Nightwave, you can get a blueprint from the daily sortie. My weapon has been formatted 6 times. Don't put yourself through this, honestly, it's not worth it. But if you do guild a weapon, keep in mind that you get to choose the name of the weapon. I chose Vermi for short, and you get to choose one polarity, go with a V symbol or Madurai. When it comes to arcanes, honestly, I tested all the brand new arcanes. The residual Maldor, which is essentially cold procs, shock is electricity, boils is heat, Vermia is toxin, and honestly, they're a little bit lackluster for the time being. Until they get a buff, you can just ignore these and go with Pax charge. Why not Seeker? Well, more on that later. The accuracy, we don't really care about the accuracy, do we? So we can go with Magnum Force. Again, you do have a lock-on feature with the tendrils or the tentacles, so you can go with Magnum Force. In this specific combination with Haymaker and Splat, 39% crit chance, 2.3x critical multiplier, but of course that's from the Splat loader, so bear that one in mind. You will get the same critical chance and critical damage with Killstream as shown earlier. You got a solid fire rate of 12, a magazine of 43, multi-shot of 5 because, well, 5 tentacles, punch through of 1 meter, and this causes so many problems with the weapon, and I'll showcase just a little bit later. Reload quick at 1.7, Riven Disposition, 1 out of 5 as for all brand new weapons. My friends, I cannot possibly recommend you going out and getting a Riven for a Dispo 1 weapon. It's simply silly. Don't get me wrong, it is possible for you to get the roll that is worth putting on the weapon, but the chances of that happening are slim to none, or you gotta fork out a whole lot of plat, so bear that one in mind. The weapon Plexus or Excellus slot, from my humble point of view, is not worth unlocking. You can use something like Pistol Ammo Mutation and it would be useful, or whatever else, like, I don't know, maybe you want more zoom with Hawkeye, even though this one, in the case of the Vermisplicer, is kinda useless. Steady hands doesn't matter because the weapon doesn't have any recoil, and targeting subsystems, again, pointless. Do not unlock this one, save your resources or your 20 plat. The status per projectile is going to be 3.4, and considering that by default you got 5, it's not really all that bad. It's not a status-focused build, however, so bear that one in mind. The status-focused construction of the Kitgun. The damage layout, you got Impact Puncture Slash and you got Toxin as well, which is both a blessing and a curse because you can get your Vital Elemental combo really quick or your Corrosive Elemental combo really quick, but if you want to go past that and get more elements, it becomes a bit more complicated. Now, I'm gonna spare you the hassle and we're gonna go for the quote-unquote final build on this one. When we got essentially everything, we got damage with Hornet Strike, Magnum Force, critical chance, critical damage with the Prime mods. We got even a Riven. It's a loaner from a friend, not mine. It's got multi-shot, crit chance, minus puncture, and cold. That means that with a single mod, I can make my elemental combo. I also got Lethal Torrent on the weapon, Carnage Stinger, and Battle Diffusion. Carnage Stinger is an option mod, but in this case, it really works well. You got plus status chance, and you got that 90 slash, which will increase the proc priority of slash. Now, considering that I got cold from the Riven, and the weapon by default has Toxin, it goes to Vital. So honestly, this is a pretty sweet setup. I also increased the status chance, also increased the slash, with Carnage Stinger because it really works well in this build, but you can plug it out and put it instead of this one whatever you feel that's worth it. So let's test out the weapon like so. The critical chance is 137%, and I think the critical multiplier is somewhere around 4.8. We cannot test the weapon with Saren because Saren's passive will skew the test results. So let's go with something equally Bodacious Mirage Prime. We're gonna go like so for a test. And observe what kind of results we get with the Vermisplicer. We're gonna go for a headshot. The target behind my first target got hit. And this is just one example of the lackluster, not only performance, but reliability of this weapon. I went for Pack's Charge, by the way. I didn't go for Pack Seeker because actually getting headshot multipliers out of this one is fairly difficult. As you can see, I don't know if you can see, but the tentacles lock on more to the torso rather than anything else. Not only is this a souped up build and the performance is not fantastic to say the least, you can't even hit the bloody targets that you want. And this carries over in normal missions as well. So my friends, right now, the performance of this weapon isn't exactly fantastic. But knowing what we know, we can make a few changes to the construction of the Kitgun. And for that, we're gonna have to go back to Rud Zud. From just playing with the weapon from mission to mission and observing how those tentacles act, I believe that default punch through on the weapon causes a whole lot of issues when it comes to the actual mechanics of the weapon, and it's simply not good right now. But assuming that Dee's idea was not to get headshot multiplier, well, in that case, building it for full crit is no longer a savvy idea, so we need to try something a little bit more balanced. You might say, hey, let's go for full status now, right? No, going for full status, mathematically speaking, even if you don't get that headshot multiplier, will still be somewhat of a bad idea. You gotta go for a more balanced build on the Kitgun, if you really must, that is. I would recommend you keep your Haymaker Grip, but for the loader, try one of the new ones. I'm gonna spare you a whole lot of grief. It's gonna be this one, the Phymoid. I don't know how to pronounce it, but This one basically offers you the best of both worlds. Take a look at the stats in comparison to something like a Splat. Let's preview Gilded, and we're gonna go like so. What do we got? We got less critical chance in comparison with the Splat. You got 28%, Splat had 39%, and only a 2.0x critical multiplier in comparison to 23, but you got 85 magazine, right? Almost double, basically, and you also got a longer reload, though, 2.9 seconds instead of 1.7. The status chance, however, has gone high, 5.6 instead of 3.4. You might say it doesn't matter. Keep in mind that this status chance is per projectile, and by default, you have those 5 tentacles. And as long as this thing cannot get a headshot, this is the build you wanna go for. One of the brand new loaders, the Macro Phimoid. Now, honestly, this is where I would build this one and test it again and show you the results, but honestly, with the risk of sounding like a bloated fish, I had enough of this secondary weapon. Honestly, it's simply not fun, it's rushed, it's unfinished, I don't enjoy the mechanic, and past the mastery points, I don't see why anybody would bother making a Vermisplicer. That's not to say that the primary version is not good. The primary version is a different kettle of fish, but for a secondary version, my friends, mastery fodder at the current time. Oh, and did I tell you the good news? I don't think I did. All of these, the brand new loaders that were added with the Arcana update, cost 3 scintillant to make each. And scintillant, unfortunately, is still a little bit difficult to farm. And I believe that's pretty much gonna do it, my friends. Unfortunately, at the current time, the Vermisplicer as a secondary is a little bit lackluster. And I would like to stress this out, the secondary has nothing to do with the primary. I've been hearing all sorts of good things about the primary version of the Vermisplicer. This is one of the reasons that I don't just jump into Kitgun reviews, because they're modular, because theoretically you have some quote-unquote options for them. I want to wait until everything is nice and sorted, but at the current time, it doesn't look like the Vermisplicer is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you got any sorts of feedback for me, by all means, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you guys want to suggest any particular type of content. Now, I can't exactly promise you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, because these things sometimes take a while to make, but what I can promise you is that I will be reading through each and every comment. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. But until next time, my friends, bye-bye.